Alright, what is up? I have a little trade recap for today. I ended up taking a loss, which is fine. Yesterday my bias was correct, but I didn't follow my bias. Today my bias was incorrect, but I followed it. I ended up getting a strat popped up onto the market, and it was following my high time frame bias. So let's get in the market and see what we saw. Right here in NASDAQ, as you can tell, we had that 4 hour, which we actually ended up inversing right here. We inversed this 4 hour, and that was coming into market open. On ES, once everything likes to load, ES had that same 4 hour, and it already inversed it. So we can get rid of this on ES. What else do we see? We have a 1 hour low right here. We have another 1 hour low, which I'll show. We have a 4 hour high up here and a 4 hour imbalance, which we are now tapping into. We have a 4 hour imbalance up here and a high up here, and this is all-time highs. We're going to go all the way to all-time highs. You can see too on NASDAQ, we tapped into a 4 hour bullish for value gap, and we retraced into it, showed rejection out of it, and we've been pushing higher. It's one thing I should have noted into the day, and that was also us inversing. We were respecting this gap right here. As you can tell, we never inverse this. So we were still in this 4 hour gap, but if I go to the 5-minute time frame, and now I'm going to have to do a little bit of market replay. Select bar, we'll go 7:55 a.m. As you can see, we have that low right here. We have the highs up here, which never got tapped, and on ES at the same time. We have a low right here, which got close to being tapped, but it wasn't tapped into. That's the 1 hour low, and we ended up having the 1 hour time frame. No high here because this needs to close. So we're going to go to the 5-minute, 30-minute. We'll go 30-minute. What did I see right off the bat that gave me my bias for today to be short? We had London session open and we manipulated highs. What were the highs? We had Asian session highs right here. London session opens and manipulates Asian session highs. What I was expecting was for us, and we got a reversal before New York. So what I was expecting was the previous session manipulation, and we got the reversal. I'm expecting new session to continue lower. So I thought maybe we would continue lower, just push lower into these lows for the day, and then maybe go high, or tap into these highs and then go lower. So we'll turn this off. We'll go right into what we were seeing on the market. Yeah, boom. What do we see? We're going to really select the bar and go back a little. It is currently 8:20 a.m. The market is opening. I'm not going to click that. We're going to let this go. What do we see right off the bat? Let me slow this down too. One time. Right off the bat, we see we went all the way back up to Asian session highs. And what do we end up going to is these New York highs in the day. This is that 4 hour gap I was talking about, by the way. Turn this off. So right off the bat, my bias, we never swept lows on ES, that 1 hour low, and we never swept it on NQ. And we immediately start pushing higher. But what do we get? We get this buy side liquidity on NASDAQ. ES didn't have its liquidity right there. ES's liquidity was all the way up here. NASDAQ's second drawn liquidity was right up here. So I let this play out. Boom, we get a sweep. So this is what I saw. We ended up having this sweep at this high, correct? But look where ES is. ES isn't at that high. So we made a lower high on ES and a higher high on NASDAQ. So right off the bat, we got an SMT. And it was a bearish SMT. So I was like, okay, we are probably going lower. I don't think we would go lower all the way to this sell side, but I do think maybe we can even target a 1-to-1 to these gaps, and that was where my take profit was. You could say this is up here. This is the high. So now I'm looking on ES. Not only that, but if we go to the 1 hour or the 4 hour, we tapped into that 4 hour gap to sweep out that liquidity, and I'm expecting maybe not to inverse it, but maybe a retrace, especially off of that SMT. A retrace out of it. So if I go back to when we got that SMT on ES, what I'm looking for then is we had a 5-minute SMT, 1 hour sweep, 5-minute SMT. I'm looking for a 1-minute break of structure. Where's our recent low? When we're looking for a break of structure and we're trending higher, so when we're looking for a break of structure to the downside, we're looking at lows. We have an up candle, down candle. This would be a high, a down candle, up candle. This is a low. What do we get? We get break of structure at the lows, and I entered in right here. Stops are at these highs. Where am I targeting right off the bat? Well, the hard part about this trade was we had a 5-minute gap in between here, which I'm going to mark out just to show you guys, because this was what made or break my trade. Made or broke it. It's really what broke it. Bullish value gap on the 5-minute. First take profit was down to this 5-minute right there at a 1 to 1.7. That was my first take profit. Second take profit was if we inversed it. Third take profit was the start of this, and that would have been a 1 to 2. So that would have been the trade for me today. I didn't think we were going to go down all the way to this sell side liquidity, but I at least thought like maybe we'd want to, even if to go higher, retrace down into this 5-minute gap, right? Because we had the SMT and we had the 1-minute break of structure. So then a 5-minute SMT and we got a 1-minute break of structure. So then I entered in, and this was for my bias too, was to go lower through the day, continue lower, because I thought we swept what we needed. Even on this, we get the 1-minute break of structure. I'm gonna just mark this up, even though I did not take the trade on NASDAQ, and we can target it right off the bat once everything loads. We can target this 5-minute gap, which is not a 1-to-1 even, so it wouldn't have been a great trade, but I mean still close to a 1-to-1, or the middle of it, which is a 1-to-1, the end of it, which is a 1 to 1.5, which, like I said, I don't know if we wanted to go down this low, but we could all the way go down to this 5-minute. On top of that, if we look at an ES, not only do we have this 5-minute gap that we could possibly respect and go higher, we were playing right into this 15-minute gap that we had in between here. We had a 15-minute fair value gap right here, a 15-minute imbalance right here. So that was what I was looking at. I still took the trade because my setup was there and it aligned with what I thought my bias was in the market. And what do we see? So I'm going to just play this out. Look, I was hoping if we get an inverse here, we're going lower, baby. We did not get that fucking inverse. At the same time where I'm looking at inverse on this pair, what is ES doing? I mean, what is NASDAQ doing? Do we have the 5-minute gap in between here? No, the 5-minute gap is all the way down here. I'm going to keep playing this out for a minute or two longer. Like, we're respecting it. Just straight up respecting this gap on ES. NASDAQ has nothing to retrace down into, except this gap right down here, which we did not go towards. So at the same time, what I'm looking at was right upon here. I believe this is a 1-hour high as well, which on ES we were, like I said, we got an SMT divergence. So I was looking for the 1-minute break of structure, which I got, and then I would love to see a 5-minute inverse, because that's telling me like, hey, this is probably going to go bearish. It's confirming bearish order flow. We never got the inverse. Instead, we respected this gap, and if we go down to the 1-minute, which you can see right here, which I'm going to go get rid of this now. If we go down to the 1-minute, if I was looking for lawns to this high, we come down and we respect this gap. This 5-minute gap never gets inverse. It looks like it gets inverse on the 1-minute, but it's a 5-minute gap. And does it get inverse on the 5-minute? Oh, I gotta leave soon. Load. No, it doesn't get inversed on the 5-minute. So we're looking at the 1-minute I could have done, and we could be looking for a break of structure. What is a break of structure? When we are trending lower, we're looking at the highs to break structure on. So I could have had it at this. Let's say we tap into this gap. What are our highs? Well, we have a high right here, up candle, down candle. Really, the one I was looking at was right here. Because yeah, up candle, down candle, that's a high. Well, now we have a new high, which is right here, which is an up candle, down candle. Does NASDAQ end up giving me the same thing? No, I'm not going to be looking at NASDAQ. What I could have done is, drum roll, long position, wait for the break of structure that we got, stops at this low, target all the way up to here to a 1 to 1.7, or this would be a 1-to-1, let's just say. Let it play out. Notice how it doesn't go down. It comes all the way back to my stops. So this wouldn't even been a lawn setup. Like if you're looking for a continuation, let's just pause this and look at this. What do we end up seeing? We on NASDAQ, remember we swept ES. We ended up getting a 5-minute break of structure, up candle, down candle, 5-minute break of structure. No retrace in between here. That's another thing I was looking for, was potentially longs actually to go to these highs, because I'm like, oh, we're pushing higher. Maybe before I can get in on the lawn to go to these highs, and then ideally we trend lower for the day because we are tapping into this big 4-hour gap, which you can see what do we end up doing? My initial trade, like we talked about, was around here, and my first take profit was here. What does it do? So we can get rid of this funky monkey shit. We can go back to this right here. This is rough. So we're going to go to short position. Where was my break of structure on ES? Remember, down candle, it was up here. We broke structure past there. The stops was at the high of the S&T, and my first take profit was down to this 5-minute gap, which we came down into to fill to then push higher, and this would have been a 1 to 1.7. Well, what do we see when I entered this trade? It goes down, we get close, not really, and then we go right back up, stops me out. What does it do? It comes back down lower, ends up inversing this 5-minute gap. Then we get a retracement into this 5-minute, and we're tapping into the 4-hour and rejecting off of this 4-hour at the same time, which y'all will see right here. We're tapping into this 4-hour. It was a really rough day, and we don't even inverse this 15-minute gap, which is what is telling me like that's why we went back into here. Is once we ended up stopping me out, we came back down to fill in more of this 15-minute gap. We didn't inverse it though. This candle never went past this bottom line, this wick, top wick, and we respected it, and we ended up pushing higher. But like I said, if we go down to the 1 minute, I get stopped out. What does it do? It comes all the way back down to my first take profit, and it runs right back up. So yeah, this was the trade. Boom, comes down to my first take profit. This is right around that 15-minute gap. Respects it. 15-minute candle closes, and it pushes higher all the way back into here to then do what? Finally take out these highs. Maybe there was an entry around here. Let's even just look lower on the lower time frames, because we respected this 5-minute gap. And so let's say when NASDAQ gave us the liquidity sweep, right? We can just even look on NASDAQ. NASDAQ gave us that liquidity sweep. We came back down. I believe we have the 15-minute gap on NASDAQ too. Yeah, we respect it. Liquidity sweep retraces into a 15-minute gap. We go to the 5-minute. We inverse this 5-minute, which actually, what time was that at? We inverse this 5-minute at 10:45 a.m. It's around that same time. We inverse that 5-minute. We can get a 1-minute break of structure, which is at 10:48. We have this right here, up candle, down candle. We get a high. I could have entered in right around there. Stops at this low. Target, what do we go to target? We go to the 5-minute time frame to target take profits. I could have targeted this 5-minute gap. Not a great risk to reward, because it could respect this and then consolidate, or I could have targeted this 5-minute high, up candle, down candle. We have a 5-minute high right here, which is a 1 to 1.69, or I could have gone back into this 4-hour gap and targeted it, expecting that, hey, we're probably going to want to target back into here. This would have been a 1 to 2. So yeah, let's just even run through this on NASDAQ. We ended up getting a 1-hour sweep. This would have been a continuation model, potentially. We get a 1-hour sweep, which is up here. We can get rid of this S&T because the S&T was invalid. We get a 1-hour sweep on NASDAQ. What do we end up getting off of that 1-hour sweep? We're on the 5-minute. 1-hour sweep on NASDAQ. We get a 5-minute break of structure to push lower to then retrace into this 15-minute gap, which is at 10:30. That 10:30 15-minute candle, the 15-minute candle closes at 10:30, and it opens up. Well, it closes at 10:40. Yeah, it opens up. It starts pushing higher. So then when we are retracing into that 15-minute gap, which let me just mark this out so it makes it clearer for you guys. This is the 15-minute gap. Respects it. We can go down into the 5-minute. What do we see right here? We have a 5-minute bearish fair value gap. Bearish fair value gap that we end up inversing at 10:45. We go down into the 1-minute. On top of that, we are getting a 1-minute breaker structure, and I could have entered in. So, confluences for this setup that ended up would have been a winner was a 1-hour liquidity sweep, 5-minute breaker structure to the downside, confirming bearish order flow, which the only reason we broke structure on the 5-minute to the downside was to tap into this 15-minute, which it retraced into, respected it, So that's liquidity sweep, break structure to the downside, retrace into a 15-minute. We go to the 5-minute. We see a 5-minute inverse, 4 confluences on top of a 1-minute break of structure. You can go 5 confluences off of that. If we go to the equilibrium, let's see, we have the high right here down to the low right here. No, I'm thinking of this wrong. We never even got equilibrium, I don't believe. No, we didn't. So that would have been the setup in reality, in my opinion, for a continuation model to go tap into that 4-hour. But I wouldn't. I was in the shower at this point. I wasn't even looking at the market because I already took my loss and I was done for the day. Struggles. So trade review template. Today the date was 8/8. Yeah, 8/8/25. We time frame session. I ended up taking this trade on ES. And it was around 10:45. No, that was the first trade. My trade I ended up getting in on was around 9:10. So right at the end of the macro. Set up tight. So we had a 1-hour liquidity sweep, and then we ended up getting a 5-minute SMT, 1-minute break of structure. Entry reason, my initial bias was bearish. Because if we go to the 15-minute, let me even just, maybe I'm thinking of this wrong. Market opens, we manipulate highs, we ended up getting that reversal. We get that reversal. What if it was this? It could have even been London session manipulation and London session. No, London session manipulation, and then the New York gave us the reversal. That's not the correct one. No. London session. Yeah, I thought we had previous session manipulation and we had the reversal. This is in the London session, and I was wrong because I thought we wanted to then continue lower, at least even tap into here, continue lower, tap into this liquidity possibly, and then trend higher. Or tap into these highs and then maybe go lower for the day. So my bias, that was my entry reason, and not only that, we had that SMT, and I thought we wanted to not even go lower. I wouldn't want to be greedy to say, oh, we're going to go all the way down here for 1 to 4. No, I just thought maybe we do want to go bullish for the rest of the day, but instead of us just going bullish, possibly we might want to just retrace into this 5-minute gap, but we didn't need to retrace into that 5-minute gap because on top of that, we had a 15-minute gap into here, which it retraced into, and that's what it needed. My take profit would have gotten hit if I didn't get stopped out. So that's the only issue with that. Risk to reward, the risk to reward on my setup, on my first setup, the risk to reward I was targeting, obviously I always target 1-to-1s, and it's not always going to be a 1-to-1, but like where's the nearest point that I should take profit at? And today it would have been at a 1-to-1.77. 1-to-1.77 would have been the first take profit. Execution score, I felt like pretty properly after we had the SMT. I felt confident in my execution. I felt confident in the trade, and then it ended up not playing out. But I did notice once I entered the trade, once we had that 5-minute gap, I'm like, well, we could inverse this to then go lower and it hits my take profit, or we could respect this and then it goes higher and then it hits my stop loss. So it was, I had a little bit of a doubt in the trade, but I was already in it. It's to the point where I'm honoring my stop loss, like my life depends on it, and I'm honoring my take profits. Like if I entered the trade and I felt confident in the setup, I'm going to take it. But on top of that, when I saw we had a 15-minute gap, I'm like, ooh, this could be tricky. We could get some consolidation, and it was definitely a risky setup. Did I follow my plan? My trading plan, it depends. Today wasn't my reversal. Today, the setup I took, it wasn't my straight-up reversal setup that I look for, which is like 5 confluences, and it's not my continuation setup I look for, which is 5 confluences. It was 3 to 4, and that was because it was 1-hour liquidity sweep, 5-minute SMT, 1-minute breaker structure. Thing is, though, with those SMTs, they're great reversal setups, and I'm thinking I might even start de-risking on SMTs. Like, I won't take a setup, like if it's my reversal model, I'm not going to take a setup if it has 3 out of 5 confluences or 4 out of 5. But when it comes to SMTs, I will take it even if it's 3 out of 5 maybe it's not as likely to play out, but then I'll de-risk because I love SMTs, and SMTs are a really good reversal confluence. It's just in the last 2 days it hasn't played out in my favor. Not only that, but yesterday when I at my take profit point where I wanted price to go, we ended up getting an SMT and then went lower. And that was the setup. Really, in reality, that was the setup for yesterday. One of them. We ended up getting like two solid setups, I thought. But that's just something to remind myself. Yeah, is if I take SMTs now, I'm risking $400 per trade. I'm just like my A plus setups. When it comes to SMTs, I'm gonna be risking 250 or 200. I'm gonna say probably 200. If it goes to 1-to-1, that's a $400 day. I'll take that, right? Or 1-to-2, it's a $400 day. Emotion check before, during, after. Emotion check-in. Yeah, I was a little antsy even without any caffeine. I was a little antsy once I entered the setup, just because it had a right off the bat we were tapping into fair value gaps that we could respect and then fucking go higher, or we could inverse, right? And then and that was right before I was thinking about that. During the trade, it was a little stressful as well, but I just calmed my nerves and I was like, you know what, this is either going to my stop loss or my take profit. Either way, if I wasn't okay with losing, I wouldn't have entered this trade, right? So that just settles that right there. And then after, I took a loss, so obviously I don't feel great, but that's a bit okay because I understood that my bias was just wrong today. My bias was off, and that's perfectly fine. And what I did well, targeting take profits, I did pretty well. I guess handling my emotions in the beginning, it was pretty confident, and just trying to go into the day. Like, I've taken 3 losses this week then, so I'm on a losing streak. And one thing I noticed is I left the markets today thinking, you know what, at the end of the day, that's fine. People will have losing streaks. It could be worse. The market is infinite. It will always be here to trade. You can always trade another day. So at the end of the day, I took a loss, but next week, even if I'm not going into the market to win or lose, I could end up taking wins next week. Like, I could take 3-4 straight wins and I'm back up on my account. It's a probability game. In the same way as, well, why would you take this setup if you know we were tapping into a 5-minute fair value gap or a 15-minute fair value gap? True, correct. The thing is, though, you have to think about is it's a probability game. With that reversal setup, what if, yes, it's what if. What if instead of respecting this gap, we inversed it? And it goes to my take profits. But we respected it and we went higher. That's fine. It's a probability setup, and it's taking from it and learning from it. That today, after we ended the 1-hour liquidity sweep, 5-minute SMT, 5-minute SMT, and a 1-minute breaker structure. Right below that, we had a bullish fair value, 15-minute fair value gap, and a bunch of bullish 5-minute fair value gaps stacked on top of each other. And price respected it. And we could get the same setup next week. And what if price inverses it, and then it goes to my take profit, right? So that's just going through my trade review template. I'm trying to go through over more. I ended up printing out a lot of stuff for myself to just go over on like a trading morning routine. I getting up at 5:15 a.m. and just going through my day with natural dopamine, good dopamine going through my brain, and then around like 7 p.m. is when I can get that shitty dopamine in, like a doom scroll or so, or literally anything else. Mental model sheets, self-coaching prompts. I've made some affirmations like I only trade my edge, no setup, no trade. Today, my edge in the market, I showed up with the SMT. Did it play out? No, it did not. That's okay. No setup, no trade. I saw my setup today. Follow risk rules no matter what. I risk the exact same amount that I have been doing on these setups. But one thing, like I said, I'm noticing is with SMTs, I'm going to de-risk just a little. My worth is not tied to any single trade. That's another thing. I took a loss. I'm on a losing streak this week. I'm not going to let that define me because the charts do not define me. What I do outside of the charts defines me. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to make my day better. Losing is a part of the process. That's another thing I wrote down, and it's true. At the end of the day, you learn from your losses more than you learn from your wins. And then the last thing I said is I am patient, selective, and disciplined. I was patient today because when we were looking, that's another thing I felt like I did pretty good as well, is we were looking at this to get this 1-minute breaker structure. One thing I'm trying to train myself more is waiting for the candle to close. So when this candle right here it could have closed all the way down to here, which would have gave me a shittier risk to reward, right? But it's like at the end of the day, wait for the candle to close. And if it closes, let's say this candle right here closes all the way down here. Let's say it closes down here, and then the risk reward becomes like a fucking 0.6 risk reward. I'm not taking the setup. I kind of wish it did that because then I would have avoided this setup. I'm not taking that setup. I'm going to let it sit and we're going to move on, right? And then I've done some other things. I wrote down responses to common triggers because this is the thing when it comes to emotions. A losing streak, step back, revisit only A++ setups, lower size if needed. I'm on a 3-day losing streak. So in this, I'm going to step back. We're going into the weekend. I'm going to relax, go back into the charts, just journaling, studying. And then Monday, I'm going to come back very selective. I'm not going to force anything. Over trading urge. Today, after I took that loss, I was like, maybe I could get in on another trade. No. Did my setup, that's the overtrading thing. Did my setup actually occur? And then wait for clarity. I didn't have clarity after this whole thing happened on what the market was trying to do because it was fucking. I mean, once we got into this 4 hour, as you can tell, it was kind of just like, well, we seeked, and then we destroyed, and it's just straight consolidation the rest of the time, and then we moved lower. Revenge trading, step away from the charts, take a walk, breathe. What did I do after I took a loss? I showed it to my buddy, explained to what my mental model was going into the market, and then I stepped back, went and took a shower, drank some coffee, listened to some house music, and I relaxed. And then FOMO. Remember, the market is infinite. Patience plays. So I could look at the setup that we saw in NASDAQ, correct? I could have looked at this setup, which would have played out to a 1 to 2.32. And I could be having FOMO right now. Oh, I could have taken this. Who cares? At the end of the day, walk away, forget about it. FOMO is a part of the game. Fucking ignore it. But yeah, this is what I saw in the market today. I'm hoping I explained this pretty well on what my bias was. That's another thing too is, yes, my bias was wrong today, but then the last 2 days, my bias was correct. Even though I didn't take wins, my bias was correct. Yeah, and you can't win every day. I mean, even TJR, who's been trading for 5-7 years, sometimes his bias is still wrong. Sometimes he takes losses. It's a probability game. Losing is a part of the process. You just roll with the punches, All right. I'm going to end up going to the gym. Have a wonderful day. Peace out. If you are confused, especially Devin, if you're confused on this recap today, leave a comment or just fucking text me, bro. Just text me. Ask me what you're confused on. And I always text you that. I always tell you that shit. But yeah. By the way, I didn't even know this setup happened until I just got on to make my trade recap, which is cooked. Maybe I could have forward tested that. But yeah, all right. Have a wonderful day. Oh, actually, last thing I wanted to show. We'll go to Top Step. Log in. Not great. Win rate percentage on the week, 22%. I just started the account. Average winning trade is 439. I've only hit a 1-to-1. Average losing trade 248. Decrease average to minus 150. Increase average to 400. Dope. My worst day was 344. My best day was like $59. Profit streak 0. Highest day on the account was 99. We're gonna go to Top Step X actually real quick just to show y'all. This is what I've been trading on. I think I showed this yesterday because I mark up everything on TradingView, and this is what I end up using. This is the markets I'm looking at. The only bad thing about this is you can't really mark out for value gaps, but you can notice them. And then performance stats. Rough week. Rough fucking week. We're down $600. But hey, if I see it let's say Monday or Tuesday, this is just why it's a probability game. Let's say Monday or Tuesday, I see my A+ model and it fucking hits for a 1 to 3. I'm back up on the account and more, right? But yeah, we're going to see how this goes. Already the month of August. I knew this month of August was going to be hard to trade because historically the S&P does not perform great in August. There's a lot of fake outs. There's a lot of indecision in the market. And as you can see, it's been treating me rough, but that's okay because with these rough months of price action, that's what makes you a disciplined trader because I'm taking losses right now, but I'm learning from these losses. And just even the last 3 days, I've learned more from these losses than I have in the last 2 weeks when I was taking dubs. So yeah, this is really it. Gonna forget about this today. Anything but trading. I'm gonna go distract myself the rest of the day, improve myself, and have a wonderful day. Peace out, y'all.